how to build a software MVP and in general do software development. I'm here with Pedro with Fractal Software Technologies. I've been developing a relationship with Pedro for the past little while, and I knew we had to create this because so many founders come to us and they say, I just spent $100,000, $140,000 building software, or I lost $50,000 trying to pay a developer, a freelancer. Who do I hire? I didn't get what I paid for. I paid, basically 50% to 100% more than what I thought I was going to pay. Scope went crazy. Then budgets and all this stuff, everything's late. I don't know how to manage a team, how to keep them accountable. I got software being held for ransom. They did some stuff to me. I hear these stories every single day. And if you are a founder that is struggling, or you want to know the best practices on how to build a software MVP, meaning that you are actually going to go out and put some code down and hire a developer or freelancer, this is the conversation for you. Pedro, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you're doing well. And how about you introduce yourself? So who are you? Give us a thumbnail. What's your company all about?
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Ed. And happy to be here. Happy to be of help. And yeah, our company, which is Fractal, as you just mentioned, focuses in solving exactly the problems that you mentioned earlier. We were born to offset the risks that usually come associated with freelancing, outsourcing, and to make digital strategy affordable to startups that usually do not have the means to go and look for an agency that's going to charge them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that are going to basically be irresponsible with the resources. And so what we do is that we have a very strict methodology and a model that allows companies to very quickly and very cheap build software for hypothesis validation, and more specifically to make sure that what we're building into software can translate into value. So not just opinions, not just ideas, but we take a very critical approach at your ideas and your startup, and make sure that when we're going to develop something, it's going to be of value and you're going to be able to scale from there. So okay. In that regard, yeah, we care about the success of the project. We care about the digital strategy of the company, and we have software as a means to make that happen, but not as an end itself.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. I'm gonna punch holes.
Yeah, go for it.
How many times do founders get a really great pitch from a development company? And, we're going to go through this. So I appreciate the messaging you're putting out there, reinventing software development services. At Fractal, we simplify the way digital projects are conceptualized and implemented, as well as the way that IT talent is recruited to ensure high quality and sustainable digital transformation services at affordable rates. So super quick. You don't have a team of programmers working for you. You put teams together. Explain how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. There's three critical issues in software development. So the first one is that it is very costly. And given that it's very costly, it makes holding sustainable strategies at the rate that you should be holding, or at the or giving them the importance that they should have at your company, it makes it really hard. And in that regard, that links to the problem with IT talent, and is that given that IT talent is so scarce, the salaries are incrementing, and it's very hard to afford high quality developers. And that makes companies go for junior developers that at the end of the day have to build things 3 or 4 times because they don't have the best practices. And as a result, it makes the digital strategy even more expensive. And more importantly, it never translates into value. So what we do in order to offset that, and this comes out of experience because I used to work at a large e-commerce. I was head of operations in the marketplace, and we hired a ton of development services all throughout South North America, and even in a couple in Asia. And it was a mess. It was a mess. We got, in my opinion, from the business side, ripped off at every step. And it was very hard to, to manage. So what we do right now in order to offset that is that we have a vetted community of software developers and technology experts. So not just developers, but we also have project managers or just business leaders that have worked in the industries, in the different industries, and then can become part of high performance teams. So we built those high performance teams. People that are in the community are people that have to be referenced. So they're not there because they want to be there. They're there because they're invited to be part of the community. And after that, they go through a couple of interviews. The technical roles do have to have a couple of tests just to make sure that they're at the quality that we at the right point where we can get them on board the community and really make sure that we're offering amazing services. And yeah, that's what we do. We form these high performance teams with people that have worked not only in the technologies that people are looking for, but more importantly, in the business model that people are trying to work on. So let's say a marketplace. It's
Sure.
very important that when you bring on developers and you have to start from scratch, explaining what a marketplace is, how you generate revenue, what are the risks of a marketplace, it becomes very slow. The risks of developing something you don't need become very high. Instead, if you grab a team that has worked with marketplaces for years and you put them to work in marketplace, not only do they understand and are able to understand your needs and build them or towards them very fast, but they're able to suggest learnings that they've had from previous experiences that would allow you to save time and money.
Okay, let's break that down. You put out so many good points. I think we really have to break it down for founders to understand how you
Absolutely.
work. Okay, so I got your services here. And what I really like is what you said about responsible development that actually generates value, which is so important. And you are a founder's founder in terms of the way that you talk. We're going to jump into some of the things that drive you crazy that founders do, and the way the industry works as far as software development. But you help with this, you have it right here, project conceptualization. And so you're going to help conceptualize, which is really important.
Scope.
And just
that's another name for it. Building a scope, just looking at the size of the project and making sure that it's the right size for the time of your company.
Okay.
And not just a random idea.
So that prevents founders coming, and a lot of founders, they say, well, I have this idea for software. And then what happens is the development company says, oh, you need all these bells and whistles. You need to be doing this and that. And they just rack up the scope. You'll actually conceptualize the scope and say, hey, maybe you don't need this.
You probably, if the scope of a project, if you need a team that is larger than 3 people and you need more than 3 months, you're not building an MVP. You're building something else.
Okay.
So we are very, very critical, as I mentioned earlier, on the scope. We just throw rocks at the project to find the problem and find that core problem and that we can link with a solution. And we only develop for that solution. Okay. We're a company that believes in data-driven software development.
Right.
So
yeah.
Exactly. Once we launch, we want to listen to what users want. We don't want the only, of course, we incorporate the opinions and the ideas for example, from managers, etc. But we focus on the customer, on the users, and how they interact with your solution to make sure that when we release a feature, it's not just because it was a good idea, but because users wanted that feature and they're going to use it from the start. And you're going to be able to capitalize value on that feature from the start because people were already asking for it.
All right. So let's go back
to scope. Perfect.
Typically, no, let's go back just to the founder and the options. Perfect, yeah. So typically the founder will say, I've got an idea for an app, or I have an idea for some software. Go to a dev shop. Now, the typical dev shop has got all their coders under the house umbrella, their employees, or they, have a combination thereof. But They've got high salaries. Now, some could argue, well, having a salaried employee is cheaper than a freelancer, and we'll get to this in a moment. But okay, but I'm only going to get the talent that the software company is able to have in their own stable and like their bench, if you will, the bench of talent. You're saying, hey, instead of doing that and going to dev shop, we're actually going to go out and source the team from all over North America, South America, and curate the team together specific for your project. You mentioned marketplace. So if you're building a marketplace, we're going to go out and find marketplace talent. Now, your talent is vetted. One of the things you told me before, which I really appreciated, was that you don't just let anybody into your network of talent. They have to be referred. And you just said they're tested. So I get confidence in that. Plus, you are going to conceptualize and say, hey, maybe you don't need to build so much. Let's figure out what goes to value. And then let's use the data as we build it, test it out to figure out what is the continuous development cycle based upon what you learn, which is the lean software methodology, build, measure, learn. That's what I know what you subscribe to. And so that's the benefit of instead of hiring your own people as a founder, I can either go out, hire my own team, which is a huge risk, go to a dev shop that's got traditional, everybody's in-house, which is a huge risk, or go to you, which is a scrappy, agile, let's put some teams together specifically for your project. And you said if it takes more than 3 people and 3 months to get your first thing out there, then you're probably, your scope is a little wacky. That's what I heard from you through this conversation so far. How did I do? What did I miss?
That's that. Right on point. It's everything. It's a great summary of the points that we've been touching. And yes, that's what we do. That's our responsibility. Let's say we take to heart that we want to make software available for everyone. So not everyone has to be or know about software development. That's what we do. We take care of that part. And we want to make sure that we protect or we take care of your resources and your strategy, and that we're aligned with your project so that we can create the most value. We're not looking, which is something that happens a lot with software agencies, we're not looking to generate value ourselves out of your company. We want to generate value with your company.
Interesting. That's the partnership.
Exactly. That's high performance teams are built from our side, but also include people from the company side. And because we need somebody there to, or a team of people there that work with us hand in hand in the development of the product, so that we can make sure that everything is in line, that we don't have deliverables that are not aligned with the business, not only with the business expectations, but more importantly, with the business strategy. We're looking for drivers of value creation, and we ask for them all the time. If you work with us, we're going to be asking at every point during the development of the project, how does your idea contribute to the value to the driver of value creation? So if, for example, again, going to the marketplace, usually a driver of value creation in a marketplace is number of sellers or number of one of the sides of the platform. If that is your driver, we're going to be asking every time you make a suggestion, we're going to be asking how that contributes to the number of sellers, how that's going to make us be better at growing in the number of sellers, because we want to get there as fast as possible and with the least investment and that as we can. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about money. I've heard some pretty crazy, well, I think they're crazy, but I think it's probably normal for you. You are located in Colombia, but you use talent all around the world. You know, they work remote. When I go in a software development company, they put on this, it's like an agency. I remember being in the ad agency days, and you have to really put on a show, have an amazing office, put on these parties. Somebody's got to pay for that somewhere. So I go to a development company, and they got this real swanky office and, you know, all the bells and whistles. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know, I'm going to pay for this eventually. Like, this just adds to the cost, right? The margins just have to continue to go up. So how do you stretch my dollar as a founder? I've got $1. How do you make it multiply and expand versus going to just a dev shop?
Okay, there is a lot there that we definitely optimize for companies. Let's start with the most important or the most expensive part, which is talent. As we mentioned, there's a deficit in software development talent, and as such, salaries are enormous for very junior jobs. So you can see somebody who just finished or hasn't even finished college and has no experience whatsoever, and they go out and they are close to making over $100,000 a year from the start. And
it's not even that. I heard of a kid out of college, went to go work at Coinbase, $600,000 a year.
Okay, now that's well, precisely my point. Precisely my point. So yes, it's talent is getting very expensive, and that makes companies, of course, agencies that have to have them, as you mentioned, under their roof and have to manage them, and have to compete with, for example, companies like Coinbase that are able to offer those salaries. It means that they have to have a very, very robust strategy of retention of talent, to make sure that that talent remains. And even if they are able to, like if they manage to retain some of the talent, the IT industry has over 50% of they're not of rotation year on year. So it's an industry in which there is no retention whatsoever of talent, and that is not only costly in terms of course, salary, but also knowledge. So in that regard, we do not, given that we do not have them under our roof, but we employ them, let's say, per project for a very definite amount of time, we do not have to take care of the costs of the office that you just mentioned, competition with other firms or with other companies, given that they are in the network regardless of the company that they're working on. And we can use their talent and use their time regardless of where they're at and what they're working on. The second part is that we do not have bench developers, which is a very important part. When in traditional agencies, when a developer finishes a project, they stand in what they call a bench. They're benched for around 3 months on average. So those are 3 months that for every developer, at least 3 months a year, that they're going to be doing nothing. They're going to be studying. They're not going to be generating value for the company. So in that regard, I have to charge for the rest of the developers enough so that I can have 3 months of developers doing nothing. So I have to make in 9 months the money that I would have to pay developer for those 12 months.
Sure.
And that also is a huge increase on the costs. Not only that, but when you bring all the different elements that need to be taken care of, like, for example, licenses, trainings, everything, it becomes ridiculous. You pay for a developer over 50 to 60% more than what they pay the developer. So
absolutely,
it's a huge overhead. And that 50 to 60% is exactly what we're able to save for companies. So on average, per developer for the same quality, we would be able to achieve efficiencies of up to 60%. And usually it's actually quite a bit more.
Okay. Now, you have talent that works for these big companies that ends up freelancing for you anyway.
All developers, no matter what company they work for, freelance. And unfortunately, I realized this when I was on the other side, let's say, and I had this development teams that were from top-notch agencies, from top-notch companies, and half of the time they were not working on my projects, and there was nothing I could do about it. And it's there on the like, let's say, the culture of the industry, not only in respect
sure.
to, for example, freelancing, but also every time more we hear, for example, about I forgot the name. like for example, people participating in open source software,
Yeah,
and which has no return on value whatsoever. People don't get a penny out of open source development, and they still do it because they like it. So we have an industry that is very passionate about their work, that is very creative, and that does not like monotony. So they're looking for projects, they're looking for things to exploit their interests on, and that can be achieved by freelancing. So regardless of where they work on, they're freelancing. And what we do is that we take the risks of that freelancing part and we organize them in a company that is able to be liable to your customers, that is able to offer a great service, that is able to ensure the delivery of projects or etc. in a timely manner, in a way that it's organized under a specific methodology. And we solve the headaches both for developers or freelancers that don't want to have a conversation with the commercial part, don't want to have to take care of the financials, and we take care of the customer side or the client or the company side, and we put amazing talent at their disposal at a very good rate, and we take care of the rest.
Okay, so then let's talk about, while we would love for all founders to be able to develop software MVPs, let's talk about the reasons not to use you. So let's talk about,
yes,
a founder's out there and saying, I'm thinking about doing this. When should they say, let's do something else other than contact Pedro and get him developing a software MVP for me? Talk about the reasons not to use you, because you're always transparent about that, which I really enjoy. You know, what's that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first, let's say, stopper, and it's something that actually happens a lot, and we do tell a lot of founders that we're not either not the right company or not there yet. We do not start a company by developing software. We don't think that software is an end by itself. We think it's a means to an end. So before developing software, you should be able to sell your product or your service. You should be able to validate whether or not it works without the need of any type of software developed by yourself. This could be via email, via WhatsApp, via Facebook, via Instagram, via whatever you want, depending on your service, but you should be able to sell. And you should be able to establish the company's processes from that little prototype that you built without software. You should know where the bottlenecks are. And from there, what we do is scale it. And then we can do it.
Okay. We got to pump the brakes here for a second, because I really want to highlight for people watching this how different it is hearing this from you, somebody who runs a software company, saying you should be able to do it without, you should be able to sell your company and make money without the software. Let's break this down, because
absolutely,
other dev shops will say, you have, a bank account and a dream, sure, we can build it for you. They don't care whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Right? So now this is in line. This is the reason, I hope we work together for a very, very long time with our founders, because we're always telling founders, validate your idea before you have to spend any money. It's very rare that a company needs to actually develop a software MVP to validate the idea. Highly rare. So
very rare.
They can do things like, for example, Dropbox sold their solution with a video demo, like they pre-sold it. And so you're saying go out and validate these things before you spend the money, which is completely contrarian to what other dev shops are going to say. And I just want to share how refreshing that is to hear.
Yeah, it's horrible. I think it's, for example, we have we've had founders that come to us with a quote from a dev shop that are just ridiculous. They're like $150,000 for an MVP, and if you have that amount of money to spend on an MVP, your business is pretty big. You shouldn't be calling it an MVP. It's going to be a huge project.
Yes.
So that's definitely the way we approach startups especially, but also large companies when they have great ideas, and large companies are very creative, and we also try and make sure that the data is there and we can develop upon that data. So that's what we're looking for. Business processes, and in those processes, you're going to have bottlenecks, you're going to have issues, and you're going to realize where you need scale, and there is where the software comes in. We are able to make you sell more that you should already be selling. If you need software to sell, either it's your business model is highly rare, as you mentioned, and you do really need something to show, but most of the times, you should be able to sell without the software. If you need the software, then you're just going to become a very good marketing agency that's going to make a not that big of a problem sell. But if the problem is big enough, you should be selling beforehand.
For sure. So understanding, one, you validate market, you start selling, the processes that are involved, which is then the software comes in to reduce the friction, to create efficiencies, automation, et cetera. And that's how you scale. In the beginning, founders really should be doing things that don't scale, because that's how you get in front of the user and you don't waste all your money. So I get it. So you've got founders out there. If I had, and we don't want to overpromise and under deliver, but let's just say you could take, let's say something was going to be an $80,000 build at a dev shop. You're saying you could, generously say, spend $40,000 instead, and we're going to help validate and get you going that way, which is great. What about those founders who've already built something, or they had another dev shop build it, and they're like, oh my gosh, here's what it is, and I'm not happy with the team, or maybe the contracts ended? How do you help those founders?
We still have the same approach in which we care, or we want to understand what your driver of value creation is. And maybe it's different at the different stages. So at that stage, probably it already changed and it evolved, but you should be looking for something. You should be looking for very clear objectives. You should have very clear KPIs in what you're pursuing as a business. And what we do with, for example, those types of founders or companies that hire us to work in existing software is that we do a phase of analysis in which our teams sit down and read the code, but not only read it and analyze it, but do it in considering what your north is, what your next step is, what your milestone is.
Wow.
So that we can find where there is an issue, so that if we see, for instance, that you're not going to be able to achieve a goal because of a specific part of your system which is not going to hold, we can make the suggestion of making an improvement there, and that becomes part of the product backlog. So we are building a product backlog, which again is aligned with business objectives, which ensures value, because we know that if we solve that, we're going to have the value that you're looking for. And we start to prioritize based on those KPIs, based on those drivers of value creation. And not only that, but after the analysis, the teams are way more comfortable with the code. They are comfortable because they already asked the questions that they needed to ask. They feel, more confident with the entire solution. And as such, once they start developing, whether it's findings that they found on the analysis or new ideas, the times and the costs are going to be shortened by a lot.
Okay. Let me tell you a problem that I've encountered before. I know a lot of founders encounter, and tell me how you solve this problem. Founder hires a dev shop. They give me a scope and they give me a price. Then it gets to the end of the thing and it's not done. The deadlines aren't met. And they say, we hit this problem, that problem, and this problem. And they say, we're going to need more money. And I say, no, I'm not going to give you more money. You agreed to deliver this. And they go, okay. And they grumble. But then all of a sudden, I'm not getting attention. Doesn't seem like they're engaged. Things happen to get longer and longer. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should just pay to get my headaches taken care of. I'm going to give them more money. And they kind of play this game with you where you end up forking over more money eventually. And again, it's all, you just feel really manipulated. How do you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we address that is that we take full responsibility of the estimates that we do. So we take the part of giving you an estimate or giving companies an estimate very seriously. And if we make a mistake, it's our responsibility. If nothing else changes, we should be able to deliver. If there's changes, because a lot of companies do have changes in the middle of the development, then we sit down with them as soon as possible and re-estimate or reorganize the tasks so that we are able to deliver as much value as we can in the set amount of time. So in that regard, you will never, ever go all the way to the end of a project or to the end of a timeline of a project and realize then that we didn't finish. You probably will realize that if we're not going to finish for whatever reason, you're going to realize very early on in the process, and we're going to have a conversation very early on in the process so that we can make decisions at the right time. And also, we have a very strange and flexible methodology in which we work for, let's call them sprints. We call them iterations, but let's call them sprints because it's easier. Mm-hmm. We work on sprints, but then we can, between each sprint, we can wait as long as the company needs to start the other one. And we only do the specific, let's say, refinement of the user stories before each sprint. So you know what you're going to get at the end of this sprint, of each sprint, before you start, and you will get it. If we mess up in the estimate, we'll put more people on your team, and it might take a bit longer, but it's not going to be on your pocket. It's going to be on ours.
Perfect.
Because we are the responsible party. If we are the experts on technology, that risk should not be yours. It should be ours.
Okay. Next, let's talk about technical co-founders for a moment, because I know this is going to be on the mind. Let's get a little beyond.
That's a big topic.
But interesting enough, so technical co-founders are hard to find. That's just the way it is. If you are a founder and you're technical, like you're a unicorn. There's way more founders that aren't technical. So that's where solutions like yours come into play, which is, I understand. So I get a team to get a dev shop, or I get a team, your company put a team together for me. I get a nice product. It starts making money. And, I'm ready to go shop for investment. Maybe I do secure some seed funding or different things like that, depending on what my traction is. What would you recommend to founders on how then to get a technical co-founder or get an employee, a CTO in there? Do we have to incentivize them as co-founders? Like, what's your experience? What have you seen?
In my experience, and this is a huge question, and there's a lot of debate about it. From my perspective, if you don't have a technical co-founder from the start or from a very early stage on your project, then you shouldn't go look for a technical co-founder at later stages.
Interesting.
I think in the software industry and the development industry specifically, it's hard to get people that are emotionally attached to the companies they work for.
Gotcha.
And in that regard, if you bring them on at a later stage, they're going to have you as a project that might succeed, but that it's not going to capture their full interest. And you need, like any founder, if you want to have a partner or bring a co-founder to your team, you're going to need them to be very passionate about it. And you're going to need them to be emotionally involved in the project and be able to make sacrifices. And for an industry that usually gets paid a lot of money and has a lot of flexibility because they have more benefits than most of the workforce, it's very hard to make that compromise. It's very hard for them to join a team, be ready to work without a very high salary, and just hope that in a couple of years, it's going to be a big thing. That's something that it's hard to find. So if you have a CTO or a technical co-founder early on the project that is at that stage and gets involved at that level, by all means, as you mentioned, they are unicorns. Keep them and incentivize them in any way you can, via equity, via anything you can as a business, let's say co-founder, or the business side of the company. You have to take care of that talent. You have to take care of what you ask of that talent, because he's going to be putting a lot of hours in something that he might not be, or she might not be as comfortable with as, for example, the business co-founders usually are. So are a bit more flexible. If you get to later stages and you already have the funding, if you have funding, don't look for a co-founder, hire somebody.
Great.
Have an equity pool that you can play around with and build your own development team, but don't rush to find. And if maybe after a couple of years, somebody in that development team really engaged with the company and you know they're crucial to the success of the company, then at that point, yes, make him a partner or look for a strategy that is more permanent, but do not rush into it. Hire them first, let them work first. And again, everything will fall into place if you start slowly.
Which is solved by validating your idea, generating revenue. And if you're doing it right and you actually build something that generates revenue, you're not going to be desperate to find a technical co-founder. You can just pay for more development.
Exactly. Which is amazing. If you're able to pay and not give away equity, that's definitely what you should be doing.
100%. Because that's so expensive. That's the most expensive compensation you'll ever give out, equity in the beginning of a company, especially if you're sitting on a baby unicorn that's going to ride a rocket ship to the moon, right?
Absolutely.
So I get it. Okay. So 2 more questions. First one is, well, it'll be 3 questions, but the last one I'll spring on you. So the next question is, let's brag a little bit. What projects, what real fun stuff, what big stuff have you worked on? Give us some highlights of what you've seen.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we're currently working with some of the largest companies here in South America, and it's some of them have very amazing projects, and some of them, unfortunately, are more operational, more integrations that are not that much fun. But other than that, we work with startups which usually have the brightest ideas, and it's extremely it's amazing for us to be able to help them. For when we get a startup at the right stage and we're able to help him materialize his dream or her dream and make it true and then see it working, is absolutely gratifying, and it's what we are here for. So for instance, right now we're working on a project that is making sports facilities around the different cities in Colombia available for hire in an app. And that's something that there's a lot of, for example, here the market, and this is an example of how we get involved in the projects that we have. The sports market here in Colombia is extremely, extremely informal. So there's a lot of football fields, tennis courts, or whatever, that are never used and that are not digitalized in any fashion whatsoever. And on the other side, there is a lot of people that like to play sports, and that like to play sports a bit more seriously than just going to play a game a week or whatever, but that they really want to be competitive and they really want to play every day, etc. And they don't have the people, they don't have the means to contact the different institutions, etc. And we're bringing all that together on an app. Nice. We're also working on a project. This one was born in China, actually, in Hong Kong, that is building a platform to manage the private planes and private helicopters of people in China, so that they are able to monetize part of the services in, let's say, other types of activities.
Sure.
And it's a similar case with crowdfunding platforms or ed tech platforms, which are right now a boom, let's say, and logistic platforms, which is the world moves on logistics right now. So all of those are definitely it's part of what we're working on, and they're definitely within our scope. Then there are some, let's say, crazier ideas in regards to AI or AR, which are, let's say, buzzwords, and most of the time are not actually needed. So we're trying to be very careful with those projects. So everyone wants to have an AI platform, but actually 1% of the projects do need the AI. So but we do help them into actually finding the right approach to implementing what they need at the right time.
Great. You take that whole responsibility thing very seriously. You are part of the startups.com community. You're one of our community leaders. You're one of our advisors. We brought you on board just to talk to founders. What's it been like? What benefit do you see in type of community? This is a selfish question. What, from your standpoint, in knowing what you know, what's the value of having a community-driven accelerator where we're all helping each other, such as startups.com, with advisors and groups and channels and all that stuff?
It's I'm going to be actually a bit biased on this, because I before belonging to startups.com, we went through a couple of accelerators in London, and the value that we got from them was amazing in terms of the community. Mm-hmm. They were not, we didn't do anything special with them. We didn't raise money or anything, but the community feedback that we got was so crucial for our service that when I started looking into startups.com and started working with you guys, it was just a way to continue that value creation that we received as being part in those communities, and just try and bring all that value and continue the value creation here. So there is a lot of mistakes that I've personally made as a founder, and I want people to avoid them because they're very avoidable. And not only in the startup journey, but also in the software implementation journey. So in that regard, I think, it's extremely gratifying for you to be able to, just with a 30-minute conversation, change somebody's mind and realize that that specific conversation is going to have a significant impact on the development of a project. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have a significant impact on the development of the person, because it's not going to have to hit 10 walls to learn something that, if I already learned, I'm happy to share and help people learn from that. And on my side, and this is the selfish part, I learn a lot from what people are doing, what people are thinking, from the different the stages of development of the products at the different parts of the country, in this case in the US, but also we have founders that are not based in the US, and how those projects look different and what they're aiming at. And it's extremely interesting for me as a person and for us as a company to understand what's going on in the world and how people are thinking about technology, where people are demanding of technology at each specific region, so that we can make sure that we're there to help at any point in time, and that we're not going to be obsolete, or we're not going to focus on what we should not be focusing on, and be loyal to our software for everyone phrase.
Software for everyone. I really dig it. Okay, last question. We have founders that are watching this. Obviously, you're available. They can reach out to you. But what advice would you have for them? Say they don't talk to you. They never hang out with us. We're never going to interact with them. They're just off on their own. What would you advise that founder to do when considering building a software MVP or just a software startup in general?
I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again, and I will say it again 1,000 times. be the MVP yourself. You
Wow.
don't need software. You should be the MVP. When you build software, you should be automating the processes that because of time, you're not able to do yourself. And that's when software should come in and should allow you to scale. Before that, you should be the platform. You should be the link that it's able to communicate with customers, send the emails, do the financials on Excel, get a no-code platform if you need to validate something more specific. But the knowledge should be a person or a team of people. And then after that, once you understand how your industry works, how your business works, what are the processes in terms of sales, in terms of financials, in terms of lead generation, in terms of everything, what do you understand, what do you need to go from point A to point F, which is you sold. At that point, when each of those segments is saturated and you know where you need to scale, you should, for instance, if it's only from C to D that you need to automate only from C to D. That should be your MVP.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Well,
be the MVP.
Well said, profound. Here, I like to tell founders, be the startup community you want to see in the world. You're saying first, be the MVP you want to build for the world. Be the MVP. I love it.
Then automate yourself, literally. Build a robot that is able to do what you're doing faster and more efficiently, but you should know what the robot is going to do because you already did it.
That was so profound. We should have opened with that. But
I'm glad that on the start of the workshops that we get. Be the MVP.
Well, at least we got here. Pedro, it's been a total pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations. You also keep me fresh in terms of the different things that you talk about, and you're always painting things, you're reframing things for me that just helps me help founders more. So I'm very appreciative that you're part of the community. Thank you for being community leader, and thanks for spending the time with me today.
It's my pleasure, Ed, and I'm happy to help with whatever you guys need, as you know, always. And let's keep talking and let's keep growing, because for me, it's also significantly very, I cannot describe how important it is to be able to speak out to founders and to people like you that help our company and other companies from different industries pursue north. And again, it's my pleasure, and thank you.
I'm putting all of Pedro's contact information in the notes. If you need to reach out to me as well, definitely make a connection. Thanks, everyone.